Chapter 5. Elven Awakening. When they arrived at the edge of Elves Wood, they paused to enjoy a snack from the picnic basket, knowing the path ahead would be long, laborious, and treacherous. This might be their last chance to eat before reaching the house of Levrore. Resting in the warm sunlight, they suddenly noticed, or rather smelled, a group of ballybogs passing nearby, pulling a large cart heaped with rusty scrap metal. The ballybogs were too absorbed in bickering over who would push and who would pull to notice the 6 figures sitting just downwind of them. The creatures were a ghastly sight, mud-covered with hunched backs, round bodies, and almost no necks. Huge, bald, knobbly heads bent forward as they heaved the heavy cart along the muddy path, grunting and groaning in their strange language. Once they had finally passed, and the air was breathable again, the travellers rose, dusted themselves off, and prepared to journey into the forest. "What were those disgusting creatures?" Jade whispered. "Those are ballybogs," Jared replied softly, glancing around. "Best not to talk too loudly. They're evil creatures. You don't want them to know you're nearby. I wonder what they're doing so far from the bogs. There's a legend about them. Humans used to offer sacrifices to appease them. Human remains found in the bogs support that tale." The Senate quietly entered the woods. At first all seemed ordinary, but an hour or so into their journey, Jade felt an odd sense of foreboding creep over her like a thick fog. She noticed the others standing taller, alert, their eyes scanning their surroundings with an intensity that made her heart race. Cold seeped in as sunlight failed to penetrate the thick canopy overhead, the vibrant greens of the forest muted to unsettling shades of grey. The air grew heavy, the forest eerily silent, save for the soft crunch of decaying leaves beneath their feet. Every so often, a low, rumbling groan echoed through the trees, a sound that sent chills skittering down Jade's spine. With each step, they became increasingly aware of the absence of birds and animals. Where once there had been a chorus of life, now only silence reigned, amplifying the sensation of unseen eyes upon them. Jade shivered and looked to Jared for reassurance, but found none. His brow was furrowed, and his jaw set with worry. The trees seemed to close in on them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, compacting tighter and tighter until they were forced to dismount and lead their horse through a maze of trunks. The fairies expanded their forms, their luminescence flickering nervously as they walked protectively ahead of Jade, navigating over massive roots and twisted branches that seemed to reach for them. Suddenly, a branch lashed down, sweeping Jade off her feet with a violent crack. She screamed as she tumbled, landing heavily on the ground, her heart racing in her chest. The fairies rushed to her side, forming a protective circle, their wings shimmering with urgency, while her horse, Botanic, eyes wide with alarm, tugged at the reins in a desperate attempt to help her up. Trembling and smeared with mud, she climbed back into the saddle, feeling the reassuring warmth of Botanic beneath her, but the comfort was fleeting. Just then an unsettling whisper passed through the trees, barely audible yet profoundly disturbing. It was as if the very forest itself were warning them, its ancient spirits stirred to unease. Jade felt an instinctual knot of dread tighten in her stomach. She glanced around, convinced she had seen a shadow flit between the trunks, just at the edge of her vision. Finally, a faint drumbeat echoed in the distance, a rhythmic sound that felt both inviting and ominous, signalling they were nearing their destination. Their pace quickened, and a sense of relief began to wash over them as birdsong and soft singing started to filter through the trees, breaking the oppressive silence. But the music had an odd, haunting quality that seemed to resonate with the foreboding atmosphere surrounding them. Just as they began to feel a flicker of hope, a tall, slender elf suddenly stepped out from behind a tree, blocking their path with an intensity that caused Jade to stiffen. In moments, at least 15 elves appeared, all strikingly alike with long blonde hair, blue eyes and fair skin, their expressions unreadable. Jade felt a spell lift from her eyes, allowing her to fully take in the gathering before her. One elf stepped forward, bowing to Destin, but Jade couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed into a realm where trust was a fragile thread and the forest held its breath, waiting. Good day, Destin, the elf greeted, his voice melodic. I see you've all arrived safely. We were on our way to look for you. Hello, Alvrin, Destin replied, bowing. The journey was more challenging than expected. The woods were less hospitable than usual, even blocking our path more than once. Nothing is as it was, Alvrin replied gravely. We've had to bolster our defences. Many unwelcome guests have been passing through these woods of late. Come, we'll lead you to the house of Levrore. As they followed Alvrin, a collective gasp escaped the Senate as they beheld the magnificence of the Elven village. Beautiful buildings crafted from trees, stone and wood were entwined with thick, luscious moss, blending seamlessly into the natural landscape. Soft trails lined with delicate flowers led them to a grand stairway, winding toward the entrance of what appeared to be a castle carved into a towering redwood tree. At the top of the stairway, a tall, regal elf with 5 graceful elven women at his side awaited them. Dressed in radiant golden robes, Lord Levrore opened his arms in a gesture of welcome. The travellers bowed respectfully and followed him into a bright, expansive hall. Welcome to the house of Levrore, he said warmly. It is an honour to have you as guests. After a light meal, you'll be shown to your quarters, and later we'll gather for a banquet in your honour. But first, tell me, how is my old friend Mosan? Bravely smiled, nodding. He's well, and he sends his greetings along with a gift of rare seeds he thought you might enjoy. Lord Levrore chuckled, waving to an attendant to collect the package. Ah, Mosan knows we elves appreciate the art of cultivation, even if we don't rely on potions in the same way as some. However, he also knows we can always benefit from ingredients that enhance our gardens and magic. I'm curious to see what he's sent. The package was opened, revealing not only stunningly rare white orchid seeds, known to flourish only in the heart of enchanted groves, but also a beautifully woven pouch filled with shimmering dew collected from the sacred springs of the Dryad Woods. The seeds sparkled with ethereal energy, their potential to bloom into radiant blossoms echoing the beauty of the forest. Levrore studied the seeds and the pouch with admiration, his eyes lighting up at the thought of nurturing such gifts. He directed that the seeds be carefully planted in their gardens, ensuring they would thrive in the elven soil. Turning to Bravely, he said, "Please thank Mosan for his generosity. These gifts will deepen the bond between our peoples." Rising from his seat, Levrore gestured for Destin to join him. The Senate bowed as the two left the hall, disappearing through a door draped in silver silk. "They're courteous and graceful," Jade remarked, "but they seem distant somehow." Jared nodded. "That's just their way. Through my travels, I've had many dealings with elves. They've saved me from countless scrapes, and I'd much rather have them as friends than enemies. Come, I'll introduce you to a few of them." They strolled toward a wooden building covered in moss, save for a golden bow and arrow above the door. A group of elves practiced archery nearby, shooting between towering rocks, while others honed their swordsmanship. Alvrin, the elf they'd met in the woods, stood in the centre, directing them. "Ah, Jared!" Alvrin called out, grinning. "Thinking of trying your hand at archery?" Jared laughed. "I'll leave that to you, Alvrin. But I wouldn't mind giving your swordsman a few tips." They all chuckled, and Jared continued, "Lord Levrore wanted to speak privately with Destin, so I thought I'd show Jade around." Alvrin bowed, smiling. "You'll find us simpler than the Dryads, I'm sure. They often flit about, gathering ingredients for their potions. We get along well. They tend to the trees here and we protect them. Thankfully, our woods are mostly safe, though other forests face more challenges. Your village must be one of the rare ones that respect the balance of nature, yes?" he asked Jade. "Yes," Jade answered, smiling. "Our people cherish the land and understand the importance of harmony. Not all places are so fortunate. But enough about our troubles. I'm sure you'd rather see our village in action." He winked at Jade. "Come, let me show you where you'll be staying. Later, I'll give you a brief tour of our village before the banquet." He led them along moss-covered paths past a stone well, where an elven woman was drawing water. Jade paused, fascinated, as the woman effortlessly lifted a water-laden bag with a silver rope that looked like woven spider silk. She poured the cold water into a crystal jug, offering Jade a warm smile before gliding away, singing with a voice that left Jade spellbound. "They truly do live in harmony," Jade murmured. Lama, standing beside her, nodded. "They touch your heart in a way few can." A short while later, Alvarin guided them to a staircase winding up a mighty oak. An elven woman descended the steps, bowing gracefully. "I'm Faith. Your rooms are ready, and I hope you find everything to your liking." "Thank you," Ilona replied. "Everything here is beyond lovely." Alvarin bowed. "Once you're rested, join us in the banquet hall," he said, before taking his leave. As Jade entered her room, the gentle scent of freshly picked flowers greeted her. She set her bag down on the white marble floor and sank onto the plush four-poster bed draped in white and gold. She felt herself drift off to sleep almost immediately. After a short nap, Ilona gently woke her. "Didn't mean to fall asleep," Jade mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "But there's something so soothing about this place." "We all feel it," Ilona agreed, smiling. "Come, we've been summoned to the banquet hall." As they approached the hall, they noticed Destin standing at the entrance in his shimmering turquoise tunic, motioning to them. When they entered the huge hall, they were greeted with the most magical melody Jade had ever heard. Huge white marble pillars ran along the hall, and long glass tables graced the marble floors. Canopies of white silk fabric draped elegantly, swaying gently as if dancing to the ethereal music that filled the air. At the end of the hall, a group of elves stood on a stage, their fingers deftly dancing over strings and keys, playing enchanting music that resonated with the very essence of magic. They were seated at the long glass table in the centre of the hall, with Levrore at the head. He had not spoken to Jade yet, but she felt his gaze upon her, a curious intensity that sent shivers down her spine. At last he addressed her. "Destin tells me you have come here for our guidance. I am an old friend of Phaon, who sent word to expect you in the future. Well, here you are. May the elements guide you," he said, lifting a crystal glass in a toast, sunlight glinting off its facets. "Thank you, Lord Levrore. I am honoured to be here," Jade replied, her heart pounding with both excitement and trepidation. He nodded, his expression serious. "Destin has elaborated on what Phaon told me. We will be honoured to provide what guidance we can. This is not a task to take lightly. The fate of so many rests in your hands. Why they place this burden with a human I have yet to understand, but then again, who are we to question the judgment of the wizards?" he added, lifting his hands toward the arched ceiling, his voice echoing through the hall. During the meal, an elfman approached Alvarin, bending down to speak softly to him. Jade noticed a dark look flash across Alvarin's face, a shadow that darkened his usually bright demeanour. He stood, bowing to Lord Levrore, and exchanged quiet words with him. "Please excuse us," said Lord Levrore as he took his leave, urging them to stay and enjoy the entertainment. Jared observed the tension and sensed something was amiss, so he stayed close to Jade. Captivated by the beautiful poems and songs recited by the elves, Jade felt her heart lift with each enchanting melody, while Ilona, unable to contain her joy, twirled and danced amidst the celebration. Exhausted but fulfilled, they thanked the elves for their hospitality and retreated to their rooms to sleep. Jade sank into her soft, inviting bed, a sigh of contentment escaping her lips as sleep enveloped her like a warm blanket. In the morning, Destin roused Jade, his voice cheerful and bright. "Wake up, sleepyhead. We have much to do today." Stretching, she yawned and rubbed her eyes. "What time is it?" she asked, her voice still thick with sleep. "It's already quite late. You've been sleeping for hours. Up you get, come on." He playfully tugged at her arm, pulling her from her cosy cocoon of blankets. As Jade got ready, she walked outside to find the others gathered in the centre of the village, seated next to the well, the sunlight bathing them in a golden glow. "Hello, sleepyhead," called Lammer, a teasing smile on his face. "We thought you would never wake up." "I haven't slept like that for ages," Jade replied, feeling surprisingly refreshed. "It was wonderful." "Good," Destin said, clapping his hands together. "We have to get going now. Alvrin is going to guide you in your lessons today." Alvrin nodded, his expression serious yet encouraging. "First, we will find a quiet place so that we will not have any interruptions. Follow me." He began walking ahead, Jared following closely behind. "I noticed you did not join us again last night. Was there a problem?" Jared inquired, his brow furrowing with concern. "Yes, a group of boggles were sighted entering our woods, but by the time I arrived they had fled. I was informed that they were looking for something, or someone, so I must warn you to be careful. Lord Levrore has instructed me to keep a close eye on Jade," he said, his gaze meeting Jared's for a brief moment. "Did Lord Levrore tell you why we have come here?" Jared pressed, a mixture of curiosity and worry evident in his voice. "Yes. He explained everything to me so that Jade can be protected. I'm sure everyone knows something is amiss, as it is not the norm for a human girl to travel from place to place, meeting different mystical beings and learning their magic. I fear your secret is already known, or part of it. You will have to be cautious," Alvrin cautioned. They reached the edge of the village and stopped in a sun-drenched clearing. Alvrin said, "We will stop here. Jade, your task today will be to hear the thoughts of others." He stood in front of her, his voice soft yet firm. "Now, close your eyes and relax. Release your thoughts. Let them flow, drifting out of your mind. Now, listen." He motioned to Destin to shout at Jade in his mind. Jade stood there, eyes closed, her heart racing. She listened intently to the stillness around her. Suddenly, her mind began to unfurl, and a voice emerged from the depths of her consciousness. "I have seen him once before on the plains of Honeydew. He has been a visitor here a few times. He is so handsome, so strong. And yet I wonder, should I try to speak to him?" Jade opened her eyes and looked toward an elf woman in the distance. She was perched on a rock, gazing dreamily at Jared. When their eyes met, the elf woman blushed and quickly turned away, her heart racing. Jade giggled, the lightness of the moment filling her with joy. "What's so funny?" asked Destin, looking in the direction of the elf woman. "No, nothing. Let's try again," Jade replied, her smile infectious. She stood there, concentrating deeply, and suddenly put her hands over her ears. "Don't shout, Destin! I can hear you!" she exclaimed, laughter bubbling in her chest. Alvrin couldn't shake the feeling that there was something extraordinary at play here. How was it possible for Jade, a human girl, to master this exercise so quickly? His thoughts raced. Perhaps she possessed an innate connection to the mystical that defied understanding. "Let's take a break," Alvrin suggested, his voice laced with curiosity, as he tried to collect his thoughts. The astonishing nature of Jade's abilities buzzed in his mind, urging him to process what he had just witnessed. "Later this evening, we will focus your energy on looking beyond this time." Left to explore at her leisure, Jade wandered among the elves. Their hospitality was enchanting, and she was drawn to their craftsmanship, watching in awe as they spun magical threads of silver, gold, and vibrant plant fibers into intricate weavings. The elf woman from the clearing approached her, extending a delicate golden bracelet intricately woven to resemble a thin rope. "Here, a gift for you," she said, her cheeks flushing as Jade accepted it. "If you could spare the time, I would love for you to show me around," Jade said, her curiosity piqued. "It would be an honor," replied the woman, her name revealing itself to Jade as Hannah, daughter of Alvrin and Bellona. Hannah led Jade out of the craft chamber, showcasing the village's beauty. "Our forefathers built this village thousands of years ago, when the great Lord Elmon ruled the elf people. We are a people who love beauty and strive to reflect this in our buildings and surroundings," she said, her voice full of pride as she gestured around, the sunlight glinting off the marble and wood. "They are absolutely beautiful," Jade marveled, her eyes wide with wonder. One could easily get absorbed in this splendor and never want to leave. After a while, Jade hesitated before speaking again. I saw you looking at Jade in the clearing earlier. I heard your thoughts, I'm afraid. Is he dear to your heart? She asked, her tone gentle yet probing. Hannah's cheeks turned crimson, and she looked down, a hint of sadness flickering in her eyes. He is a fine-looking gentleman, but it is forbidden to give your heart to anyone other than an elf, she admitted softly. It's a law our people have upheld for generations. Does your father know of your feelings? Jade inquired, sensing the weight of Hannah's heart. I think he suspects. Jade has visited a few times before. My father keeps a watchful eye on me when he is around, so I suspect he knows. He hasn't mentioned anything yet, but the time will come, and I dread it, Hannah confessed, a sigh escaping her lips. And what about Jade? Does he know? Does he feel the same? Jade pressed further. No, Hannah replied sharply, her eyes wide with urgency. You must not say anything. Jade is a wanderer, always off on his adventures. This cannot work, she said sadly. Later that evening, Alvarin summoned Jade to the Hall of Glass. A ring of mirrored glowing crystals was arranged in the middle of the floor, casting a soft, ethereal light that flickered like stars trapped in glass. Lord Levrore stood in the centre, his figure a silhouette against the luminous backdrop, beckoning her to join him. Come, Jade, it is time to discover the art of vision, he said, his voice resonating with authority, echoing through the vast hall. It may take a while to master this art, as you will need to concentrate and harness a great deal of energy. The crystals will channel your thoughts to the ether. With her heart pounding, Jade stepped into the circle. As she did, the air around her shimmered and sparkled, reflecting her image from the tiny mirrors and creating a dazzling aura around her. A tingle of anticipation coursed through her veins. Lord Levrore's voice cut through the moment. Focus on your intent. Close your eyes and clear your mind. Picture the future as you would like to see it. Do not be afraid of what you might find. Jade took a deep breath, steadying herself as her pulse raced with both fear and excitement. She concentrated, imagining herself in the future, free and confident, perhaps wielding the power of the elves. As she pictured this, a vision flickered before her eyes, and suddenly her green irises glowed brightly in the dim light. Dark shadows crept over the land. A distant figure lurked ominously in the darkness, and chaos erupted in the once peaceful village she loved. With a gasp, she opened her eyes, her heart pounding violently in her chest as she glanced at Lord Levrore. His expression was a mixture of shock and concern, eyes wide as he struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. Do not lose your courage, Jade. This is but one of many possibilities, he said gently, still astonished that she had managed to glimpse a vision at all. It was clear that something deeper lay within her. Then what do we do? Jade asked, her voice trembling, anxiety threading through her words. Prepare, my dear. You must gather your strength and your allies, he urged, his tone growing more urgent, each word imbued with a sense of foreboding. The winds of change are stirring, and you will need every ounce of courage and power to face the storms ahead. He paused, his brow furrowed with intensity. You must go to the dwarves and have a mirror made to my specifications, similar to the one we are standing in, but on a much smaller scale. This will aid you in your journey. As they walked toward the banquet hall, the atmosphere grew heavy with unspoken fears, the weight of their shared knowledge palpable in the air. Lord Levrore's mind raced with unanswered questions. What was the source of the mysterious power reflected in Jade's glowing green eyes? He suspected that the truth lay deeper than he understood, and it filled him with both wonder and dread. What would Grimlaw find in Green Mountain Cove if he managed to seize it? With each step, a sense of urgency and foreboding weighed upon him, knowing they were hurtling toward an unknown danger that could shatter their world. Once everyone was seated, Lord Levrore turned to Jade on his left and spoke softly, his voice laced with concern. Jade still has much to learn, but time is running short. I have been informed that Grimlaw is nearly ready to march on Green Mountain Cove. We have been anticipating this for some time, given the unusual activity among the hobgoblins and their kind. I have instructed Alvarin to accompany you to the edge of the Elves' woods, to ensure your safe passage. If all is well, he will leave you to continue your journey to see the dwarfs deep within Blue Mountain. Jade must visit them before she proceeds on her mission. I have already explained this to her. Thank you, Lord Levrore, Jared replied, bowing his head respectfully. If only we had a bit more time so that Jade could benefit further from your guidance. But if time is running short, as you say, we must be on our way. She still has much to learn. We were not prepared for this to happen so soon. She is still too young. Lord Levrore's gaze settled on Jade, a thoughtful expression in his intense blue eyes. She may appear to be too young on the outside, but do not forget who she is on the inside. We all have much to learn, but she is capable of more than we realize. His voice grew grave as he turned to Jared. Keep her safe. If Grimlaw by some misfortune manages to lay his claws on her... He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of his words hang in the air. Always remember this one thing, Jared. The crystal can always be turned from good to evil. You know, Jared remarked. I know, Lord Levrore acknowledged. Jared met Jade's gaze, concern etched on his face before he finally spoke. Well, Lord Levrore, the wizard ferrymen were aware of the dangers, and they still initiated this plan. I don't believe they would have done so if they thought their plan could bring ruin to our world. I have faith. Silence fell between Jared and Lord Levrore, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Meanwhile, Jade and Hannah were engrossed in conversation, as if they had known each other for years. Jade shared tales of her life in the village, speaking fondly of her best friend Amy, and how she could see the fairies. You know, Hannah, the strange thing is that I know more about mystical beings than I do about humans. All my life I have been surrounded by fairies and have lived with them for these past 16 years. If it weren't for Maggie and Amy, I don't think I would have ever understood humans. I have many other friends, but this is the first time I can speak openly about myself. Hannah smiled knowingly. There is a lot of talk about you. People are very curious, as this is the first time we have had the honour of entertaining a human. We all know that Lord Levrore and my father have been guiding you in our art of magic, and we have also heard that you have been to see the Dryads. Please forgive my intrusion, but it is unusual that you can not only see us, but also speak to us. The greatest astonishment is that you possess the ability to perform our magic. I've noticed all the inquisitive eyes, Jade chuckled, her laughter light. I wish I could divulge my secret, but it's too early. All I can share at the moment is that I have been appointed by the 4 departed fairy wizards to undertake a task. She met Hannah's gaze, her eyes filled with sincerity. I'm sorry that I can't tell you more, but you will know soon enough. Well, I understand this task must be very important if the wizards chose you for it. I will ask no more, Hannah replied, a beautiful smile dancing on her lips. Rising from his seat, Lord Levrore addressed his guests with a commanding presence. It has been a great honour for us to welcome you all into our home, and we hope that the next time you visit, we will have more time to entertain you. But for now, please accept this song as a farewell gift from my people. His intense blue eyes fixed on Jade, conveying a depth of emotion. He lifted his hands toward the musicians, and the air filled with a magical tune that brought tears to Ilona's eyes. Look to the skies with your sorrowed heart, for tomorrow's light will guide your part. Tonight, let peace bind our hands, and trust in signs only you understand. When shadows grow and whispers call, we encircle you should you fall. Our lives are yours for what must be, for fate has woven our worlds to see. We see the teardrops, we hear you cry, our hearts will reach, so you may find no mountain too high, no star too far, for strength will follow where you are. As dawn broke, the Senate prepared to depart once more. Alvarin summoned 15 elves to escort them through the woods. Jade was saying goodbye to Hannah when Lord Levrore approached her. "My thoughts will be with you, Jade. Please accept this gift to grant you wisdom," he said, placing a silver ring on her finger. Jade gazed at the white crystal, where she saw Lord Levrore's face smiling back at her. "This ring will allow us to communicate. Look into the crystal when you need me." "Thank you, Lord Levrore, and thank you for your hospitality," Jade said, bowing deeply, her heart swelling with gratitude. Before they departed, Destin stepped forward, urgency in his voice. "Lord Levrore, may I ask for the elemental artifact that was entrusted to you by Phaon and the other 3 wise wizard fairies? Phaon mentioned you would give it to us when we met." Lord Levrore regarded Destin thoughtfully, the gravity of the moment settling over them all. He nodded, motioning for Alvrin to retrieve the elemental wind artifact. Alvrin swiftly produced the small chime, its crystals casting soft reflections around them in the fading light. With a calm assurance, Lord Levrore took the chime, fully aware of the potent energy coursing within Jade and the weight of her destiny. He pulled out a small crystal vial and dripped a single drop onto the elemental wind chime artifact. At his flick of the wrist, the air shimmered, transforming into a gust of wind that spiraled gently around Jade before rushing into her mouth. The force of it knocked her breath away, settling within her and merging her very breath with the element. Her eyes flared a bright green, glowing as the energy fused within her. Lord Levrore gave a subtle nod of acknowledgement, recognizing the profound connection that had been forged. As he watched the wind settle within Jade, he felt the weight of destiny pressing upon him. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. Yet in this moment he understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the resolve to face it together. He vowed to guide her through whatever storms lay ahead, knowing that their bond would illuminate the path forward. The journey through the woods was pleasant yet fleeting, the trees seeming to part for them, led by the elves with grace and ease. At the edge of the woods, Alvrin bowed to the company, offering a heartfelt farewell. "I am sure we will meet again soon. It was good to see you again, Jared, and you too, Destin," he said solemnly, "until we meet again." He then turned to the others and, with a deep bow, said, "Go in harmony. Farewell," before disappearing back into the embrace of the trees. "It seems as if we have been with the elves for ages," Levrore remarked, glancing back at the forest, his voice tinged with longing. "Yes, we've only been in these woods for 2 days, but it feels much longer," Bravely added thoughtfully, his gaze lingering on the path behind them. "I don't feel like leaving now that we are here." "It's a strange feeling," Ilona admitted, her eyes misty as she took one last look at the beautiful greenery. Jared turned to Jade, noticing the quiet turmoil etched on her face. "We must make our way to Blue Mountain. Are you ready?" Jade cast her eyes downward, shadows of doubt crossing her features. "No, we must first go home. I need to see Maggie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, laden with a deep, aching need for comfort. Everyone sensed the shift in Jade's mood. The comfort of the House of Levrore seemed distant now, and the weight of her responsibilities loomed large, pressing down upon her heart like a heavy stone. The fairies exchanged looks of understanding before setting off in the direction of home, the path ahead uncertain yet filled with promise. With each step, the reality of her mission dawned upon Jade, a realization that sent a chill through her. If she failed, the world itself could fall into chaos. The enormity of it all felt suffocating, and for a moment she longed for the familiar embrace of her mother, Maggie, to feel that protective love wrap around her like a warm blanket. The thought brought a sharp pang of longing, and she fought back tears, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of destiny resting upon her young shoulders.